it's Kay with eduKaytion Golf. And just a quick reminder that you can join us every Friday for Q&A with Kay, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everything you ever wanted to know about golf and were afraid to ask. We even have special guests on. And last week we had a special guest, Patti Benson, a former national president of the LPGA and an LPGA Hall of Famer. So join us on Fridays, and you can also go to our website, get invitations, and you can also have discounts on our online lessons and our webinars that are coming up. So just sign up at eduKaytionGolf.com, and we look forward to seeing you real soon. Keep your head up until we see you again.
So I met Kay a few weeks ago. She's actually my first sponsor since this is my first year on the board, and has already offered our members a reduced discount for their 5 weeks of golf lessons, which has been great.
So for that, we're going to be doing some different guests and stuff. And so let me introduce our guest. Eloise is here. I think some of you have met Eloise before. Eloise Trainer. She's my business partner in eduKaytion Golf. And Patti Benson and her husband, Bobby Benson, are here with us today. And we have all been friends and met through golf for, we won't say how many years, but it's been, well, you and Eloise have known each other for a number of years. So Patti and Bobby are dear and best friends. Patti's been in the LPGA for 41 years. I think I've been in 42, so something along those lines. And Patti and I were fortunate enough to be in the same class inducted into the LPGA Professional Hall of Fame in 2010, that's hard to believe that was 10 years ago also. Patti also served as the LPGA national president. I was just slightly before her as national president. She followed in my footsteps and did a fabulous job from 2002 to 2009. She and Bobby were the co-owners at Palm Beach Country Club in Palm Beach, Florida. And Bobby Benson has been a PGA member and was there for 50 years at Palm Beach Country Club, which is outstanding for anyone to stay in a club position for 50 years is just an amazing feat in itself. Patti was there for 35 years. But one of the interesting things that in high school, she played on the boys team at Willard High School, and she was on varsity letter for 2 years and then played Palm Beach State College women's golf. So with that being said, I'm introducing my friend, Patti Benson. So thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Kate and Louise. Thanks for having me and inviting me. This is fun.
Yeah. A little bit about, do you want to give a little history how you first met Eloise?
Well, yes. First of all, I do have to tell you that my mom and dad are golf professionals as well. They've since passed on to another world, but they are the ones who introduced me to the game of golf. And I worked for my dad so many years as a kid. And then after I got done playing college golf, I decided that I thought, well, what am I going to do? This is what I know the best is golf. Why not stay in that business? So I went and interviewed at a club in Tampa where I was living, Tampa, Florida, called Northdale Golf Club. And it just so happens that Eloise and I met because we were in the same section, the same area, and we went to many LPGA section workshops in the area, right? We met up and realized we kind of lived near each other or not too far away from each other. But my funnest memory was, Eloise, I don't know if you remember us driving to a workshop somewhere. I think I was going like 90 miles an hour or something. And I don't know, did I get picked up? I can't remember if I did or not. I don't know if I got picked up for speeding, but I do remember traveling way too fast. And anyway, from then we kind of became friends. And Eloise came over to the golf shop one day at Northdale and said, you know, we have nothing to play in us girls. And I think that I want to put together like a mini tour, because remember that guy in Tampa who was big, and I can't remember his name anymore, but remember he was big into mini golf for the locals there, and I can't remember his name, but anyway, it's not important. But so you started the very first one, and I wasn't sure if our club Northdale was the very first event. I think it was called the Tampa Bay Mini Tour. And it was owned and operated by Eloise Trainer, and went on to become a massive force in the golf industry, which is now the Symetra Tour on the LPGA, which is run by the LPGA. So you've had quite a history, Eloise, but that's how we met. And we went to a national seminar, and Eloise was on the national committee for this national seminar, and she made me do this skit. Oh, I still have that skit. I still have that. It's hysterical. But anyway,
you need to post that.
I could have chopped her head off for that one. But my mother was also an LPGA member, and she was trying to have me learn this song. I had no chance. But that's our history.
What I wanted to say too is just please feel free to ask Patti questions and Bobby up there questions. We realize that a lot of people don't know. I said to Patti the other day, a lot of times people don't even know how to spell the LPGA and what it actually does. But because this is all where we got our history and stuff. So Jennifer, I think you had a question.
Well, I'm just curious what a mini tour is and also what mini golf is.
Okay,
well, that's a mini golf.
Mini tour. Okay, so are you familiar with what the LPGA tour is, where the LPGA touring professionals play in golf tournaments that are now produced and broadcast on television? Are you familiar with that? Okay, well, that is really considered the major tour of the LPGA. And when Eloise was starting, and Eloise, feel free to pop in here because you were the one with the brainchild here on this. But when Eloise started what was called the mini tour, the Tampa Bay mini tour, it was like not an alternate, but like,
feeder system.
All right. So like, pardon?
A feeder system.
Yeah, right, exactly, like a feeder system. So like in baseball, I don't know if you're familiar, but they have the minor leagues in baseball and the major leagues in baseball. But it's very similar to that, where you have your up-and-comers trying to get their game honed and play in more tournaments, because the more golf tournaments you play in, the more confident you become and the better skills you learn. And then that way, when it's time to maybe hopefully go on the big tour, the LPGA tour, that you're ready and prepared. And that's exactly what the became Tampa Bay Mini Tour. And then after that, Eloise, what was it called after that?
Futures. After about 4 or 5 years, we turned it into the Futures and went national. Left Tampa national. So, and now it's the Metro.
And the people who actually played in the Futures Tour some have been Hall of Famers in the LPGA, and I mean, it's just unbelievable who came up from the ranks to learn, to hone their skills, and then become stars on the LPGA.
The thing that's important too is that it's really kind of interesting that Eloise started that in 1980, so this year was the 40th anniversary of that. And there's been one, she went down, she was asked to be the starter, the honorary starter on the tee down in
Winter Haven in Florida.
And so far to date, that was just before all this coronavirus started happening. So that's the only LPGA tournament that's happened this year.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I just got in under the wire.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It was great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to say anything, talk about the talent on the tour?
Well, if people are familiar with LPGA players, Kari Webb played quite a lot on the Futures. Tammy Green played, and I mean both these players' names are going to be familiar. People know LPGA talent. And Tammy played 2 years. She was good enough to have qualified, but she didn't get her application into the LPGA in time. So she had to play with us again. She still was the leading money winner. I know people don't know that, but she missed getting her application, and here she is playing with us 2 years in a row. We loved it. I mean, we loved her. She's a wonderful person, but I'm sure it was a tough thing to take. But no, we had and Laura Davis played with us before she played in the LPGA tournament that they invited her to play in, but she wanted to play an American professional event, so she came and played with us. And just so, I mean, on and on. Michelle McGann, Rosie Jones, Meg Mallon, and if people are familiar with any LPGA, or those players that deep into the LPGA, a lot of them played with us. Yeah. It was great.
So, Patti, let me ask you a question about, you played competitively for a number of years, as we all did because of Eloise's tour. We all got to play on a little bit. And a lot of these people play in their league competitions and are always trying to get better. I mean, we're always all trying to get better, aren't we? Bobby will agree to that. We'll ask Bobby a question about teaching here in a second, but talk to him about how when you played competitively, were you anxious? Were you excited? Were you nervous? Did you have defeats? Did you have ecstasy? Tell me what it was like.
That's a good question. And it's interesting how I can still remember that so many years ago, how I felt about that. But I was always nervous on the first tee. And it was always, my dad stressed how important it was to get the first ball off on the first tee and hit it great, you know, smack it right down the middle and hit it solid. And so consequently, I was petrified, shaking, because they'd always say your name and your city and where you were from. And I was shaken like a leaf. And so what I decided that I had to do in order to get over that fear was to stand on the tee, on the range, and hit golf balls with my driver, tee them up. And in my mind, I'd say, on the tee from West Palm Beach, Florida is, or where I was from, you know, and my name, and I would play that, and then I'd go and whack a ball, and I'd do it again. On the tee from West Palm Beach, Florida, Patti, you know, and whack. And I did that over and over and over and over again until when I finally got on the first tee of a golf tournament, I felt great. And I'd whack it down the middle of the fairway, and I'd feel great, and I'd get to the next shot, and then I started shaking like a leaf. What's going on? And I couldn't hardly even pull a golf club out of the bag on the second shot. I was shaking so much. So I needed to go back and practice the second shot too. That is a true story. So anyway, my biggest success really came in high school, oddly enough. We were playing, as you mentioned, with the boys. We didn't have a girls' golf team, so we had to play with the boys. And I had to play with the boys, I should say. And we played in this event, and there were 40 of us, 40 players there were different schools from all over the area played. And so 40 of us played in this like tri-county event or whatever it was. And I ended up being the low score, which is called, back in the day, it was called the medalist. We only played 9 holes back then. And so I shot 38, and I was the lowest scorer of everybody. And prior to that, it was kind of interesting because being the only girl, here we are on the practice putting green, ready to tee off and all that. And all the other guys would say, you have to play with her. You have to play with her. Well, it's going to be a long day for you and all this stuff. They were bullying me, right? Because these guys had to play in my foursome. And here I shot 38 and beat them all.
Just shut them up.
That was my best story. But you know, I played not only many times in Eloise's events, but our LPGA section had events at the time, and it was kind of an interesting story. But I had finished second in an LPGA section tournament, and the winner of that event ended up being able to play, but was given the privilege to play at the LPGA Championship at Kings Island, Ohio. It's Kings Island, Ohio. And the girl who won the tournament had been, I can't remember her name now, Pat. I remember Pat, I can't remember her last name, but she had been on the tour, and she was like 65 years old, and she said that she didn't really want to play in any tour event anymore. So she said that she wanted to let this is back in the day when the sections could make their own decisions, Kay. Anyway.
We remember those days, yes, when we made our own decisions.
So they decided that since Pat didn't want to go to the LPGA Championship, that they would let the second place winner go. Well, I tied for second with a girl named Sue Keeney. And Sue, so what did we do? We went and did a playoff, and I won on the first playoff, and I had the privilege to go play at the LPGA Championship in Kings Island, Ohio. And it was 1991, I think. I don't know. I can't. 81. It might have been 1981 or something like that. I think it was. But my sister Susie, who's on right now, she came. She was there with us, and we stayed at my aunt and uncle's house, and we had just a blast. And I missed the cut by 2 shots. And it was mainly because at the time I could hit the ball as far as anybody. But if I hit it in the bunker or if I had it on the green, Lord knows what was going to happen. The last hole was an 18th, was a long par 5 over water. I hit the green in 2. That's how long I could hit it at the time. Those were the days. But I 3-putted the green for par, you know, and that was me. You know, I could 3-putt, 4-putt, I could 5-putt for that matter. And so I finally learned through Patti Benson, thank you, Bobby, honey, that how to learn how to putt and chip and hit out of a bunker. Now I can't hit it anywhere.
Well, Bobby does a lot of teaching. Patty's done a lot of teaching. How is it working with your wife for 35 years?
I better leave.
Well, we still get along just great. We have a lot of things in common. We spend a lot of time together, and everything's working out to my best expectations.
Yeah. Well, Bobby, you were also a very competitive player, and you've been now teaching for a number of years. You put your sticks away to do this job. Just talk a little bit about competition on the male side.
Well, I played the PGA Tour from part-time, 77, and I had my card in 78. But at that point, I'd had enough of airports and rental cars.
So you traded your sticks in for a boat.
Well, I was,
Not quite.
The boat came, I was about to turn 50, and the application was on the desk, and Patti says, you know, the application's here for the PGA seniors. When are you going to fill it out? And I kept procrastinating, and so I said, finally, after being there weeks on end, I said, you know, I'm not really interested in playing the PGA seniors. What do you say we buy a boat? So we did. We bought a boat, and we boated for 25 years, and then sold the boat and bought a motorhome.
Come
on land for the last.
Well, Patti, let me switch back to a lot of people don't know much, well, a little bit about the LPGA and the LPGA Tour, but we were on what we called the teaching and club professional side of the LPGA. And both you and I think I know we started out playing golf, and I don't think we had any intention of rising into any leadership positions. Can you talk a little bit about why you did it? What was it like? Some of your best successes? And don't tell me the worst part, because I know the worst parts already.
Well, Kay, the cool part was that you were my mentor. And had I not met you, I don't know really what would have happened. I started out back in the day, we had all kinds of section positions. And one of them was like an education coordinator. And somebody needed to fill the job, and I think somebody appointed me and said, you know, why don't you become the section education coordinator? It's really just about filing and keeping track of papers. And I said, well, I could probably do that. And that's how I kind of started in that. And then we had what we still have them today, evaluators for our teaching evaluation. Because in the LPGA, in order to become a member of the LPGA, you need to do live teaching instruction with a real student in front of people who evaluate you, who are trained to evaluate you, mind you. And that's how you become known as a, you know, Class A or the highest rank, really. Well, there are higher ranks in that, but you don't earn them through teaching like that. So I became an evaluator, and I think that's when I met you, was when I was an evaluator, I believe. And we met, I remember I was with my mother at another national seminar in Washington, D.C., if I'm not mistaken, I think is where it was. And my mother was notoriously late. She was always late. And here we were supposed to have lunch. And by the time we got down there, there were hardly any seats left available for us to sit down together and have lunch. And at your table, there were 2 seats, and you saw us looking, and you grabbed me and said, sit down. And that's how we really got to know each other. And you became my mentor, and I learned so much from you, Kay. about leadership and the right thing and to do the right thing, not just going with the fray and following, what everybody thought you wanted to do, even if it was controversial. You did what was right in your heart. And I think that was one of the greatest lessons that you taught me, was to do what was right in your heart and what you believed in. And that's why I ended up running for national president, because, listen, politics are politics, no matter if it's in the LPGA or the United States of America. And sometimes you don't like what's going on in leadership. And so consequently, you decide, I don't like how this is going. I'm going to step up and I'm going to see if I can't make a difference. And that was really my goal, is to see if I could make a difference, because I wanted our members to be listened to. Running an organization often becomes this thing where you forget that you have members who you should be answering to and who you want to make happy. And so that was one of the reasons that I ran, was because I felt like the members weren't being heard and things were just being done by the leadership at that time, the way that they wanted it done for themselves. And when I ran, I said to our members, I said, come and talk to me. Good, bad, or awful, come and talk to me. Tell me what it is. But always come to me with a solution, because I said, I don't always have the answers. And that was one of the things that, I always prided myself in, was people would come to me, they would be complaining, and I'd be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm getting ripped here. But I'd listen to them and I'd say, okay, I hear you. Now tell me, what should we do about this? Because I don't know. And I said, that's why, you obviously have some ideas, or you wouldn't be coming to me with this issue. And that's how we got a lot of things done with our executive board, was that members would come to us and then we'd have these ideas. We'd bring them up to the members, to the executive committee, I should say, which was our leadership panel, and often get a lot of things done that the members wanted. And that was kind of a really cool thing.
Yeah, you did a lot, because you were there for 8 years and did an awful lot. I didn't ask you that leading question. You said you make all the nice compliments about that, but I appreciate
but
that.
It was true. It was true, Kay, because I learned so much watching you and watching how you did things so professionally and so with honor and with truthfulness, and I think that's the key with any kind of leadership, is you got to be truthful and you have to lead from your heart and let people know that you care. And you did that.
And you did too.
Sweet. Okay. All right. All right.
You did too.
Let me open this up to anybody else who might have some questions for Patti or Bobby or me. Well, it's their show today, so I'm just here to ask questions and stuff like that.
I have a question, Kay. It's Mary.
Okay, Mary.
In club tournaments, oftentimes they'll let the women play with the guys. And I'm wondering if you have an opinion on one of the things I decided to do to try to make the guys feel better about the women being in the tournaments was to agree to play from the same tees with the adjusted, handicap strokes, because there's an adjustment you can do for playing different tees. And I'm just wondering what you think about that, in terms of, should women just play from the reds because that's the difference in our physical thing? Or to make it more acceptable, should we do things like play from there and have adjustments? Just, sort of that whole men, women tournament, issue, especially when there's money on the line. They didn't like, because my girlfriend and I played one time and we came in first place from the reds and it was like, $300 each. Maybe your husband has an opinion on that.
You want to field that question, Patti?
Okay. I honestly feel like the handicap system is our equalizer. And I honestly feel like a person should play from the tees that are best suited for their handicap, not necessarily mean quote unquote ladies tee. Right. It could be an elder man who doesn't hit it as far as he used to anymore. And so he goes up to the what I would call a forward tee, whatever color that forward tee would be. And he's playing at that length for him because that's what he can handle. That's what he's capable of handling. It would make no sense for, let's say, a 30 handicap woman to go play from the back tee or the middle tee. That would make no sense, especially if she's hitting it like 120 off the 120 with a drive or something like that, or 100 yards with a drive. So I really feel in my heart that the person should be playing at the tee that they're most capable of. I remember as a kid, I'd started as you know, a young junior golfer playing the forward tee. And when I got longer and longer and longer and longer, I went back to the back tee because I could handle that. That was suitable for my length of how far I could hit the ball. But it didn't make any sense. I mean, the whole idea is to try to get the ball on the green or near the green in regulation, right? Regulation meaning if it's a par 4, trying to get on the green in 2, or at least somewhere near it. You know, but it makes no sense to say, you know, here I'm gonna play with the guys on their tee box and hit it, and it's gonna take me 4 to get to the green, and I've smacked it right as solid as I could possibly smack it, but it took me 4 to get there. So I hope that answers your question. I think you should play the tees that you are capable of and your handicap relates to. That's what I believe. Now, if it's tournament golf, you know, and your club has it, if you're a club or something like that, or a league or whatever that may be, and it sets you up to play the forward tee or the middle tee or whatever, you got to play wherever you got to play. But if it's just a friendly game with 4, you know, 2 guys and 2 gals or something like that, play where you feel you're capable. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I could add one thing to that. When I first turned professional, I played on a men's mini tour. It was me and 150 guys. So the odds were pretty good. But what we did actually at the time is that I played from about 82% of where they played from because of the difference. So we wanted to make sure that the difference was that if they were hitting like a 6 or 7 iron to the green, that's what I would be hitting. So we based it more on what you were hitting to the green.
That's a good idea.
When we took practice rounds, it was kind of fun because the guys would come up and play on the red tees with me. And then the next practice round, I'd play on the blue tees way back with them. So that taught me to hit it longer. The red tees taught me how to score. And then I had to play the white tees when we played. So one taught me scoring and one taught me length. So, you know, you can equalize it a whole bunch of different ways and stuff like that. So, but I think going to the handicap system, it's a good equalizer. And if you're playing from the white tees, so Mary, I think that was a good idea of what you had. Yeah. Anybody else? Another question?
Good question. Good question, by the way.
Hi.
You know, becoming a better player. You know, like all of us of that time, played mostly with men. But then as I started playing more with women, you know, from a social perspective, and, you know, certainly more recently, I would want to play with the off the red tees, you know, just, you know, for the more social part of it. Then what I found became challenging was where to establish my handicap, because I was playing, you know, half the time off the white tees and half the time off the red tees, which, you know, really became kind of a challenge to then go and compete in tournaments.
Yeah, they're now starting to rate them from different tees and different combinations. Not often, but that should be happen more often, I think, and stuff like that. Patti, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I'll just say it briefly. When we actually became members of another club other than the one we worked at, and I asked to be in the handicap system because, you know, as a golf pro, you really don't have a handicap. You're supposed to be shooting at scratch 0. And so I really wanted to establish a handicap. So I got into there, which was then the GIN system, which doesn't exist now. But I would, because this particular country club had multiple tees, I'd play from a forward tee, or I'd play from a middle tee, or a semi-middle tee, because they had like 6 sets of tees. So every time I played, there was a rating when you could put your score on the computer, and it said, you know, I'm playing from the green tees, and it was a different rating than playing from the blue tee or the white tee or red tee or orange tee or whatever it was. So every time I played a different set of tees, I put my handicap in on that particular rating of that tee at that tee, and that took care of, you know, where I wanted to play and made my handicap, you know, real, which I thought was great. I don't know, you know, I know that they have changed the handicap system, so I'm not 100% sure if they continue to do it right now like that, but that's how it used to be.
I'm going to circle back just a little bit about when you played, you were the only girl on the boys team. Okay, so that was, let's say, a number of years ago. So I'm going to bring it fast forward to today, because I have a lot of junior girls, but at the places they're the only girl on the boys team still, and there still aren't enough. So my question really is, what do you think as golfers, these women and men, and their, out there today. How can we do more encouraging of young girls and women to play and to get more girls teams? Any ideas? Because it hasn't changed much in 40 years.
No, I know. I wish I had the magic answer for that. I really don't. I think that really, whenever you talk to a woman golf professional or someone who plays golf a lot, you will find that most people learned when they were young, when they were children, and their parents or grandparents took them out to the golf course. And I think that you have to have someone in your family or mentor, someone to mentor you to go out there and play. Because otherwise, how are you going to be introduced to it? Someone has to say, hey, this is a really cool sport. Let's get out there and go do it. And what better people than your parents or your grandparents or someone. But I would say if you interviewed the LPGA professionals, I bet you most of them would say that a parent or a grandparent or somebody like that introduced them to the game, and that's how they fell in love with it, which we all do once we get started, right?
Yeah. And we're still playing today.
Absolutely.
Not as well as we used to, but we're still playing today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else have a question?
Kay, this is Donna. I wanted to pipe in. The USPTA, the United States Tennis Professional Association for Teaching Pros, they have an incredible protocol for bringing young kids into the sport. I don't know if some of what they do could be any kind of model, because I don't think all of those in the tennis, it could be that they have grandparents, parents who do it, but they have an incredible outreach to schools and to other things. And so I'm new to golf, but I know that the tennis people just never cease to try to engage young people in the game. I still have my professional license, but I'm not involved at all in teaching or following what goes on. But at some point I could maybe throw ideas out, or I'm sure just on the USPTA website that they have just incredible resources about how they try to grow the early ranks of kids.
Yeah.
Patty, you want to go ahead? Patty.
Yeah, I was just going to say that that's great. That is awesome. And I do know that the LPGA, although I'm not too familiar with it since I've been out of the leadership position for, gosh, almost, 13 years now, I guess. I've been out of leadership. It seems unreal. But the LPGA USGA Girls Golf Program is one of those types of things that you're talking about that the tennis professionals do as well. They are events for girls only who are ages, I believe, 7 through 17. And they have them usually at clubs run usually by golf professionals or someone like that. And they try to make golf fun. And the LPGA had a goal of, bringing in 100,000 girls into the golf game by a certain year. And I can't remember what that is. I'm sorry. I'm kind of not up to speed with all that they did, but I do know that they are pursuing young girls passionately, because they really need to in order to keep the game alive and growing. And that doesn't mean that we're leaving little boys out, believe me, but they've got their own avenue to, it's girls that we're trying to tap into on that. So yeah, that's a great idea on the tennis to maybe look into that.
I also think, though, we're kind of going back to what you said too about grandparents or whatever, is sometimes just ask a junior to go play golf with you that maybe doesn't have somebody that can take them out on the golf course. Especially
Absolutely.
girls, because I know that a lot of the girls don't want to play, especially they get around the age of 12 to 14 and they feel very awkward. I hated it at the age of 13. I didn't want anything to do with it, but guess where I ended up playing? That's all I do is play golf.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Kind of an interesting journey we take.
If I could just Kay, that in our women's league up in Massachusetts, once a year in the summer, we had a mentor program, and it was to bring another member's granddaughter, daughter, niece, whatever, to play in a little tournament. And same thing, I think we might have done 8 to 18 or something. And just to get them, and they may never have played before, but just to get them interested in the whole game. And I think if women are doing that at each of their clubs and reaching out to the kids that may not be members' children's, but you know, someone's niece or somewhere else who isn't exposed to the golf course usually, then that's a way to, I think, we can bring them in more.
Yeah, good. That's a good idea. I'm going to ask Patty one final question is, because we were all players, I mean, competitive players at the time. How did you find the switch to teaching, or what got you back into the teaching end of it? Maybe what's your biggest joy out of all of that over the years?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Well, when I worked at Northdale, I had a really good golf professional as my boss. His name happened to be Bobby too, not the same Bobby, but a different Bobby. And he would watch me hit balls on the range and whatnot. Now, you have to understand, my mom and dad were golf professionals as well. So, but you know, I don't know. We lived in a small town in Ohio, and I knew the LPGA Tour, but I didn't even know there was an LPGA teaching division. I had no clue. And so when I had worked for Bobby, I mean, I knew about the PGA of America because my dad was a member of that. And I think at the time, I'm not even sure girls could be members of the PGA of America. I don't think. But anyway, Bobby had said to me, you know, you ought to think about turning pro. They have a great teaching program at the LPGA teaching division. And I said, they do? I didn't have any idea. So I checked into them and applied and went through their ranks. And that's really kind of, that happened in 1979. And so I was introduced to teaching, well, from my dad and my mom, because they taught me how to play the game, but in a more educated schooling type way with the LPGA teaching division. And so when I tried for my tour card twice, and I realized, kind of like Bobby, I wasn't cut out. I was, I got homesick. I was only, I was 19 or 20 years old. And here I was traveling all over the country trying to play in tour events and try to get my LPGA tour card. And while I loved the competition, I was so lonely. I hated it. And so I got homesick. And I finally went home and I told my parents, I can't do this. I need to do something else. And so being that my mom and dad were great teachers and taught me and my sister how to play golf and learned the business from them, then I said, you know, I think I'm going to do this, you know, be a club pro and a teaching professional. And that's kind of how I ended up doing what I did. And, you know, the rest, God took control and led me down the path.
Okay, well, that's great. Patti's on Facebook. I can also, you know, if you ever have other questions, and we're going to probably do more guests of this, but I want to thank Patti for being here today and making her get up early. Now that you and Bobby are both retired.
Exactly.
I even made her put makeup on, you know, not even a mask. So
exactly. Well, thank you for having me, both you and Eloise Kay. We love you guys so much, and you know, we'll be lifelong friends. And thank you, and Bobby. Thank you. And listen, all of you who came to ask questions and listen, thank you.